So now we're on Zoom and on YouTube, and just want to quickly introduce the topic, which is the secret behind the half shekel and the power of giving with inner fire. So this week's Torah portion is Kitisa, which is the portion that, interestingly, is read many times throughout the year. Not always the same portion, but for starters, um, 2.5 weeks ago, we read um, the beginning of this portion talking about the half shekel, because the Mishnah tells us that every year the half shekel was collected for the upkeep of the temple, of not the synagogue, the actual temple in Jerusalem every year. Um, and that was done a month and a half before Passover. So,
All right.
so, so, that's why we read this portion at this time of the year. Now, additionally, it talks about the sin of the golden calf and that episode, which, if you read the Torah portion this week, you'll notice that unlike other weeks where it's split up in 7 portions and they're more or less proportionate with one another, in this week's reading, the first and second section are extremely long and almost as long, if not longer, than the other 5 sections of this Torah portion. The reason for that is because the second of the 7 Torah reading, the second of the 7 Aliyahs, as it's called, um, talks about the sin of the golden calf. Now, we don't want to associate that with any particular Jew, especially when somebody's being called up for an honor, for an aliyah. We don't want them to think like, oh, this is directed at me. My ancestors did this, so we make sure to call up a Levite whose ancestors were not part of the sin of the golden calf. As we know, the entire tribe of Levi, welcome, the entire tribe of Levi um, did not partake in the sin of the golden calf. So that's why the aliyahs are split up in such a way that we make sure to not sort of direct that insult at anyone whatsoever. But then later it talks about the various holidays of the year, and so those sections are read on, I believe it's Chol HaMoed Pesach, and the intermediary days of Pesach, we read a section of that. We also read a section about the sin of the golden calf and the forgiveness that God granted thereafter. So we read that on public fast days. So there's a lot of excerpts of this Torah portion that are actually read throughout the year. But sorry, I wasn't ignoring what you were saying earlier about, so I just want to circle back to what you mentioned, that, of course, everything happens with hashgacha pratis, with divine providence. And that is that what's happening around the world is divinely orchestrated, even if some human beings feel like they're in charge or they're involved, and certainly they are involved, and if they're meant to be involved, that's because God intended it to be that way. But the credit goes to God, and the orchestration of everything fitting in when it has to fit in is all part of the divine plan. So I'll just say that. But back to this discussion about the half shekel. At first glance, it seems to be a very technical commandment. There are communal offerings that are brought in the Holy Temple in the Beis Hamikdash every year, and those sacrifices that are brought on a daily basis, somebody's got to pay for them, especially since they atone for the entire community. So every year they collect funds that everybody should contribute towards it. But there's actually something deeper than just this technical need. And the gist of it is that even though it's a half of a thing that's being given, it must be given very much, not haphazardly, but very much completely. And we'll see how the coin, which is a silver coin, is actually a coin of fire. and how a physical action is really a reflection of the soul, and how the Moses of each generation plays a part in all of this. So, um,
Did you say the Moses?
the Moses of every generation, yes. Okay, so there was a collection that Moses organized, where every Jew was required to give an equal amount, which is 1/2 shekel. That's what we're going to read here in source 1. Jim, you're up first.
God spoke to Moses, saying, when you take the sum of the children of Israel according to their numbers, let each one give to God an atonement for his soul when they are counted. Then there will be no plague among them when they are counted. This they shall give everyone who goes through the counting, 1/2 shekel according to the holy shekel. 20 gerahs equal 1 shekel. Half of one such a shekel shall be an offering to God.
So notice how there's constantly the emphasis to give half, but he does go to lengths to specify how much that is. That it's 20 gerahs, and half of that is the 1/2 shekel. So it doesn't say to give 10 gerahs, it says to give 1/2 shekel. So keep going.
Everyone who goes through the counting from the age of 20 and upward shall give an offering to God. The rich shall give no more, and the poor shall give no less than 1/2 shekel, with which to give the offering to God to atone for your souls. You shall take the silver of the atonements from the children of Israel and use it for the work of the tent of meeting. It shall be a remembrance for the children of Israel before God to atone for your souls.
Okay, so now we know what it's for. It's for the service in the tent of meeting, which was the temporary sanctuary, the tabernacle, as it's called, the Mishkan, and that's what that was used for. So let's see. What we just read was from the text of the Torah itself, well, albeit translated. And now let's go to the Sefer HaChinuch, which is a book that codifies each of the commandments and sort of clarifies in summary what the parameters and definition of each commandment is. So this is commandment number 105 in his count. Larry, go.
The mitzvah to give a 1/2 shekel annually. Every Jew aged 20 and older must give a 1/2 shekel to the priest every year. This is done by both poor and wealthy people the same, as the verse states. This they shall give everyone who goes through the counting.
Just to be clear, it's not that they give it to the priest for the priest. It's they give it to the temple by way of the priest. He's the one who collects it. Just like you don't pay taxes to the IRS agent or to the USPS. But that's who takes care of it for you, right? All the money.
All the money was deposited in a room of the holy temple and would be withdrawn to purchase offerings. From the reasons for the mitzvah, God wants merit for the Jews, so he allows them all to participate equally in the offerings each year. All give equally, whether rich or poor, and all are included in the mitzvah and the merit it brings. Pertinent laws. The sages taught that on the 1st of Adar, the announcement to bring the 1/2 shekel was made, and even the poorest of the poor was obligated to give. If he does not have anything, he should borrow from someone else or sell his clothing, as the verse states. The pauper shall not give less. In Exodus 30:15, one may not pay it in installments, and everyone must give. Priests, Levites, Israelites, converts, and freed servants. This applied during temple times, and it obligated all Jews, whether they resided in or outside the land of Israel. Nowadays, following the destruction of the temple, nobody is obligated in this mitzvah. Nobody is obligated in this mitzvah, even in the land of Israel. A person who failed to contribute violated a positive commandment and faced serious consequences, because by doing so, they separated themselves from the community, and they could not attain penitence together with the public.
Right, so you have to buy your penitence, basically, since the sacrifices are for that end.
Nowadays, due to our sins, we do not have a temple or the half shekel, but the custom is to read this portion of the Torah, the beginning of Parshat Kisa, each year on the Shabbat preceding Rosh Chodesh Adar.
Okay. So that's what I was mentioning earlier, that about 2.5 weeks ago, we read this Torah portion. So you hear, by the way, it's a great sample of what the Sefer HaChinuch, which I actually have over here. This is well, it's 2 volumes, but it basically goes through each commandment. This is just in Hebrew, but like, for example, not to eat creepy, crawly things which come from decomposed fruit. And it tells you exactly what it means, some details, when and where it applies, and then that's it. It doesn't like go into all the details of all the laws. That's not the point over here, but it's a very useful resource in terms of like just getting a basic overview of each mitzvah. So you see, he does that over here. Tells you the source in the Torah. He tells you exactly, practically what that looked like in real life, what the meaning of it is, or the reason. Sometimes there isn't a reason, but usually there is, or a symbolism, and then some more details, right? So now we have a basic overview of what this half shekel practice was. Now, it's interesting to note, one of the things he mentioned is that it can't be given in installments. So even though the half shekel is, as we calculated, a full shekel is 20 gera. Now, it's not relevant what that gera means in today's currency, but you cannot give, say, for example, 10 gera or 1 gera at 10 different installments. It has to be that full half shekel at once. Over here we have a coin, or 3 coins actually, called a $50, right? Now, there isn't another type of coin in the US currency that's called half, right? You don't have half 100. Half 100 is called a $50 bill, right? It's just the term half only applies in the American system to half dollars, right?
Well, a $50, if it's silver, is 12.5 ounces.
These are silver,
Right.
1964.
Right. So if it's a shekel is 11.4. So that's why a $50.
Well, there's a certain advantage to the $50. But anyways, the point is, part of the reason why, and we're going to get into some of the practical implications today and why I even own these, is because
You're the
that,
one who got paid off?
no, I bought these at a coin store in Pasadena. But yeah, there's something about using a coin that has the word half on it. Something about that half. Now let's look at source 3. This is from Maimonides. Steve, if you want to read that for us, and then some of the Rebbe's commentary on it.
It is a biblical commandment for every Jew to give a half shekel annually. It may not be divided up and given in over several days. Rather, it must be given all at once.
So in other words, you can't give 2 quarters. You have to give half a dollar. Well, keep going.
Okay, the law recorded by Maimonides, who he's talking about there, that the half shekel must be given up all at once, is a unique ruling that applies specifically to the half shekel. With regard to sacrifices, there's an obligation of not delaying the offering beyond the proper time. From this, a similar principle is derived regarding the mitzvah of charity. However, concerning charity, we do not find the obligation to give the entire amount at one time. Certainly, charity may be given in multiple installments. Indeed, there is surely a significant advantage if one charity,
If one gives charity.
charity several times within the very same day.
So it's actually very interesting. You know, if you were asked, I know now we gave the spoiler, but if you can think back to a minute ago, if I were to have asked you, what's better? Is it better to put $100 in your charity box right now? Or is it better to give $20 over 5 days, meaning the same $100, but over 5 days. What's better? And why?
Might depend on what's needed
Oh, that's a very good point. Um,
and how much you have to give as well.
that's also a very valid point. Um, so obviously, let's assume that the charity box is not going to be actually distributed till a month from now. So either way, in a month from now, the same amount will be in that box. The question is, are you giving it all at once, or are you giving it in several installments?
Well, the whole thing is to make sure that you're doing it, and to do it, you do it over a period of time so that you just get into the action
Oh,
of filling up your tzedakah box.
exactly. There's something about, well, it's not about the action of filling up the box, because then again, you're deflecting the focus, or, or
I never direct
redirecting the focus to the box.
because that's tzedakah right there. So
The focus is on the person, actually,
right.
in to a large degree. In other words, there's an overarching principle with mitzvahs in general, that mitzvahs come from the word tzavsa. Tzavsa in Aramaic means connection. Mitzvahs are here to connect us with God. Every mitzvah we do is a connection point to God. Every, if you look on your call log, how many times did you call your mother this week, right? It could show once, but it's an hour and a half phone call, or it can show you have 15 calls in the last week. Now they might be 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and they may even total less than an hour and a half. But what shows on a greater level of devotion, right? So when you're giving tzedakah, when you're communicating with God, when you're connecting with God on a regular basis, that shows on a certain level of commitment, more so than cutting a check one time for $18,000. Now, of course, quantity matters too, as you said. It's also about the need. You can give a penny a day, and
That's one thing about giving to the homeless. You can walk up and give $2 and turn around and walk away. But if you spend time and speak with them, or if you cook a meal for them in your home, or let them shower in your home, or stay in your home, that's a whole different scene.
Yeah.
So money's the easiest thing to give. You can give it and turn around and walk away.
Okay, that's a very, very high level, and a great degree of commitment, even with some element of risk for yourself, and I admire that. But we're not even saying that that's something that we're even going into right here. Just saying, even within the realm of money itself, there's a difference between giving once a large amount, or many times a smaller amount. Here's a
It
yeah.
comes to mind, a sermon Rabbi once gave
Mm-hmm.
about committing, it was for Yom Kippur, and
Mm-hmm.
about doing a whole bunch of small sins,
Mm-hmm.
bad things, compared to doing one big bad thing. And
Okay.
trying to put it back in order. And here we have doing mitzvahs. a
Right.
bunch of little good mitzvahs or one big good mitzvah.
So what was he saying in regard to sins? What's worse, one big bad thing, or
It's hard to go back and fix all the little small bad. things
oh,
you've
I
done.
hear it. That reminds me of the story that I just heard yesterday about the Chafetz. I've heard it many times, but it was connected to yesterday's Rambam. There's a story of the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim was a person, a great rabbi, a Lithuanian rabbi, who was very anti-lashon hara, anti-gossip and negative speech. And somebody once came to him and said that, I've stumbled in this area, and I'd like to do tshuva. I want some counsel on how to correct this sin. So the Chafetz Chaim asked him, "Do you own a down pillow?" He said, "Yeah, of course I own a down pillow." So he says, "Bring me the pillow." And he brings the Chafetz Chaim the pillow, and he says, "Do you have an X-Acto knife? Do you have a pocket knife?" He says, "Oh, actually, I do." So the Chafetz Chaim says, "Great, hand it to me." He cuts open the pillow, shakes it in the air, and says, "Okay, now I want you to go pick up all the feathers. When you're done, then you'll know that your tshuva has been accepted.
Right.
The lesson was that that is the power of lashon hara. That when we speak negatively about somebody, besides for the fact that we may be lying, but even if it is true, what are the ramifications? What's the impact that we're going to have on that person, and how many people is that story going to get to? And by the way, this is before email, this is before the internet, before WhatsApp broadcasts, and even then, there was a concern that it's going to spread to a place that you won't be able to retrieve it from. How much more so today? We have to be careful what we post and what we share with others about others. So yes, this
There was, when I was in Israel, I was listening to a sermon, they were talking, there was a book by a rabbi. I don't remember which name of the rabbi, but it was about how important it is to not say things that you know unless they're necessary that are negative about a person's past.
mhm,
Because that you force that person to stay in that space. So you knew that they did something 10 years ago.
mhm.
Keep your mouth shut unless you're worried about this person getting cheated, and so that's the only time it's acceptable to bring up somebody's past. that
Right.
was
It's if it's to save somebody else from
But
you
you
know,
need to
yeah.
let a person become,
Right.
not forcing them to stay on the mistake they made.
Yeah.
You know what else they call it? Is poisoning the well. In the sense that then you create a perception around that person,
Right.
Yeah.
like my sister has done around me.
Oh,
Spread the word about how bad I was, and now everybody has.
what are you saying about your sister
Nothing.
though?
I'm not
Oh.
saying, I'm just saying the truth. Although it's.
That goes around.
But you get the point.
I got the point.
Or that prayer we
All right.
read every Shabbat, keep me from speaking deceitfully.
That's why. By the way, that prayer, Psalms 34, the one but when David feigned insanity before Abimelech, that one. So that's where the name Chafetz Chaim comes from, because it says, "Mi ha'isha Chafetz Chaim ohev yam l'eretz tov." Who is the man that desires life? Chafetz Chaim means desires life. Loves days to see good. Nitzar lashon chamira. Guard your tongue from evil, and your lips from speaking falsehood. So that desiring life is the opposite of speaking evil. So back to our text over here, source 4, about giving large amounts or small amounts. You want to read for us, Vicky?
Even if one can give a large amount charity, it is preferable to give smaller amounts more frequently. Every weekday before morning prayers and before afternoon prayers, one should give several coins to charity. However,
Right. So that's from the Alter Rebbe, from Tanya. But let's see what the Rebbe says about that. Keep going.
with regard to the mitzvah of the half shekel, there is an obligation to give it entirely at once. One cannot give part in the morning and part in the evening of the same day. Rather, he must give it all at once. Giving in a manner of entirely at once expresses in spiritual terms the idea of wholeness. When a person gives a little today and a little tomorrow, service of today stands on its own, and the service of tomorrow stands on its own. Neither is complete. This is not the case when the giving is entirely at once.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, in this very mitzvah, we also find the opposite idea. We don't give a complete shekel, but specifically a half shekel. This seems to be the very opposite of wholeness. This presents us with a surprising paradox. On the one hand, there is an emphasis on the giving not being in a complete form, a half shekel rather than a full shekel. On the other hand, the giving must be entirely at once in a manner that reflects completeness.
Okay, so you can appreciate the paradox over here. On the one hand, it's very much whole, that you can't divide it up. You can't do one gera at a time. You can't. There's no payment plan. This is a lump sum payment of the entire half shekel amount. But then it's like, wait a second, what do you call it? A half? Like that doesn't sound very wholesome to me, right? You know, when I was a kid, I always thought that it was literally like a coin that was like a half moon, you know? Like a half shekel. A half shekel means you take a shekel, you cut it in half, and you give a half shekel. And then I saw one of these and I was like, oh, so you can have a half that's actually a full circle.
So you're thinking of pieces of 8. That was a Spanish coin, and you could actually break it into 8 pieces.
Oh, okay. No, I was not thinking of that because I didn't know of that. But I'm sure that's what you were thinking when you were 4 years old and learning about the half shekel. You're like, oh yeah, the Spanish coin, right there, you know? All right. Remind me your name?
Adam,
Adam. You want to read about human perfection?
human perfection is only half. From this, we learn a remarkable lesson for our divine service. We must know that our entire spiritual service is only ever a half shekel, meaning it is not something complete, but only a half. Even though the ultimate purpose of our creation is I was created to serve my Creator, and therefore we each have a role that can only be carried out by us. Nevertheless, our service is only a half. For were it not that God helps him, he could not be able to overcome. And in the words of our sages on the verse, who has preceded me that I should repay him.
Okay, which we'll get into in a moment. So it's an again, this is the paradox of a lesson that we need to apply and appreciate and understand in our everyday relationship with God. That on the one hand, we play a critical role in God's creation. I mean, after all, he chose to create us. So, duh, I mean, obviously we're created for a purpose, right? For some people, they don't feel it as obvious as others, and no judgment to that. But we have to come to appreciate that every single one of us is important. God created us not by accident, not by some, mechanical error or who knows what, but we're here because God wants us to be here. At the same time, meaning everything that we do can only be done by us. The mitzvah that we do is only I can do my mitzvah, right? Nobody else. But at the same time, that's not all. We can't do everything alone. We're not just isolated in this our own little thing doing it all. But Hashem's there helping us.
The song I was just going to learn today. You heard that song? Don't leave me alone.
You're
The guitar
never
yid. The
alone.
guitar yid. I'm learning from the guitar yid.
I don't know. Is it an Avram Fried song?
No, I'll share it with you later.
Please do.
I was just kind of curious, so this half shekel, I mean, it's like you're saying, there's only half that you're only doing half of a
Hmm.
service. And and then the other half is God's involved. In other words, like you said, you can't do it all by yourself.
Right.
Is that the symbolism of a half shekel? I
That's
mean,
exactly what he's saying. Yeah.
So it's not really the actual half shekel per se, but it's more the symbolism.
No. It's both.
It's both.
Yeah, it's multifaceted. There's the actual factual law that you're supposed to give a half shekel. That's a real thing.
That's a real thing, but that's not much money, right? And if you have to do something
So-
big, right, in the community or could build.
But that's part of the idea over here. There's multiple types of charitable gifts. There's multiple types of communal participation. But this is just a base level and that's why it's so strict. No matter how poor you are or how rich you are, you still have to give this specific quantity because this is a flat tax on everyone, no matter what. And it even says, if you paid attention earlier, the Chinuch writes that even if you have to borrow money or sell the shirt off your back, you still have to give the half shekel. Now, it's not the half shekel Israeli shekels, because that would be, I don't know, 11 cents or something. but we're talking about half of a silver shekel. Which is why practically today when this mitzvah is observed, we observe it in the currency of the country that we live in.
7.75 grams of salt.
Or
Which is how much in cash.
I don't know what it's worth.
Like, I think probably 120.
Yeah, whatever, if you have a silver quarter, that's a half shekel.
well, the idea is still to use a half,
Yeah,
something that has the word half on it to
Yeah.
commemorate that. Growing up in Montreal, I don't remember ever getting my hands on a half Canadian dollar. We would use a half of a US dollar, which is fine because the US dollar is a international currency. So even though it's not technically the Canadian currency, you're still allowed to use it because it's a currency that's accepted in Canada as well. If you go to the grocery store in Canada and your bill is $20 and you give them $20 US, they'll be like, thank you very much. You're not getting any change, but we're happy to take your US dollars.
see, I remember when the Canadian dollar was worth more than.
For a little bit.
Oh, it was-
1.07 maybe.
Oh, no, it was worth a lot more during the 60s and
Oh,
early
okay.
70s.
I'm talking about in
This
the
was
late
before-
90s.
Before you were born, Sonny.
Yes, yes. I'm proud of it. All right.
Now you can't even get a half dollar. Can't even go to the bank and get a half dollar. It's so hard. There's so
Right.
few.
No, you have to go to a coin dealer to get them.
I mean, you can get them at the,
Nowadays, these are worth like $30 each.
Really?
Think so. Yeah,
Oh,
silver
I
went up.
got a ton of them.
Okay. You're a rich man. What can I say?
That's good of my.
If you, especially if you have literally a ton of
I
that,
don't have a ton, and I've got a boxes of them.
you can probably pay off Achashverosh, with that amount.
You probably have to find somebody who.
I mean,
Well,
when
the
I was a
$30
kid, because we were told that, look, the US is getting rid of the silver coins. So I mean, hoarded them, as a kid, the Liberty we had Liberty quarters and the Washington quarters and,
We save silver certificates.
oh yeah, I have those, yeah, but
And
They're not
somebody
worth-
a burglar broke in and stole them.
they're not
Yeah.
worth anything anymore, that's
The
all
real
that,
silver certificates aren't
Yeah.
worth anything.
no.
You can't even get a dollar for it.
You get a
All right.
dollar, that's all it's worth.
Let's get back to here. So we just said something about who has preceded me that I should repay him. That's from the Medrash here in source 5. Jen, you want to read that?
the divine spirit says, who welcomed me and I will reward them. Who praised me before I gave them a soul? Who circumcised me for me before I gave them a son?
Basically, let me just explain the context of this message. Sometimes we gloat and we say, look how much I accomplished. God, look what I did for you. It's like, hello, you would not have been able to do anything of that without me, right? The idea is that's why we're only a half shekel. Oh, I circumcised my son. It's like, like you realize that I would not have given you a son had I known you weren't planning on circumcising him. Like that was part of the deal. This was the arrangement from the get-go. Like, yeah, of course you did. Like that's why I gave him to you, right? Keep going.
Who erected a safety fence before I gave them a roof?
Mhm.
Who put up a
Mezuzah.
mezuzah before I gave them a house? Who built me a sukkah before I gave them the space? Who made me
A lulav.
a lulav set before I gave them the money? Who made me tzitzit before I gave them a four-corner garment? Who separated
Peah.
peah before I gave them a field? Who gave turuna before I gave them produce? And who took challah before I gave them dough? For me.
And then the last one is
Oh,
who brought me a sacrifice before I gave them an animal. Okay, so the Rebbe says like this: the concept is emphasized in the statement of our sages. I was created to serve my maker or creator. That is, first God brings a person into existence, and only afterward does spiritual service become relevant. Right? Included in this is that a person is created in such a way that God grants them all the powers necessary to serve their creator. Since this is so, our service is on its own is only a half, right? So if you bring an animal as a sacrifice, you only did half the job because guess what? You know who made that animal? You know who created and placed that animal in your custody? God did that. So you can't take all the credit as if like, oh, well, I gave you an animal. Like, yeah, who made the animal? Right?
That's like God did all this before for us
Right.
to make this happen, and it's up to us to repay him with the half in doing it.
Exactly. And furthermore, these things were placed in our hands in order that we should do the necessary mitzvah with them.
Remember, we were last. We were
Yeah,
made last.
I know, because all of those other things were made for us to use and do mitzvahs with. You know, I don't know why, but this reminds me of the the anecdote. They say there was a scientist and God who were having a little face-off, and the scientist says, you know, I can also create the world. You know, just give me these chemicals and these ingredients, and I can pull it all together and get it all set in motion, just like you did. And God said, okay, we're going to meet and we're going to have a little face off. And he said, ready, set, go. And the scientist picks up a clump of dust. And God says, oh, sorry, that's against the rules. You have to get your own materials. So, so,
Ex nihilo, right, from nothing.
so God made his materials, right? We are using God's given materials, right? So when we do a mitzvah, can't say, oh, look at the mitzvah I did. It's like, yeah, I'll give you credit for half.
God
You know?
nothing.
Exactly. So the Rebbe continues to say, you got to give it all you got. Based on this, a person might think that they need not exert themselves and struggle to make their service complete. No matter how much effort we invest, our service will, in any case, be only a half because we depend on empowerment from God. Why then should we work so hard? Perhaps we can get by with doing only a little, and God will complete the rest. So I think there's two layers I see in this. Number one is the depression speaking, saying like, "Oh, it's not worth it. I'm never gonna get the ultimate because the most I'll ever get is half credit." Like, imagine a teacher who marks all the tests, you know, 50 out of 50, right? Yeah, the passing mark is 38 and a half, but it's out of 50. It doesn't feel as good as getting 100 on your test. You know, that number 100, that feels whole and complete. You get only 50 credit, it just doesn't feel as right, right? So that's one angle. And that could be depressing and unencouraging to somebody to say, you know, it's not worth it. And then there's another angle, which somebody can be, you know, the opportunistic or optimistic and say, oh, you know what? It's fine. I don't have to work that hard. God will take care of the rest. I'll do 20%. God will take care of the other 80. I'll do 10%. God will fill in the other 90. I'm not that important. Who need how important is my hard work anyways? I'll put in a little work, whatever, just as a token participation amount. But does my effort really matter? To this, we are told that the giving of the half shekel must be in a complete manner, entirely at once. That is, from our own side, we are obligated to carry out our service with the utmost completeness. At the same time, we must know that after all is said and done, it is only a half, since all of our service is possible only through the empowerment granted to us by God. So we have to have that humility to realize it's only able to be complete with God's empowerment. At the same time, we can't slow down our efforts and say, you know what, I'm only going to do half a job, which would be, in effect, a quarter of the ultimate goal, right? Because, you know, what does it matter anyway? No, we have to do the whole half a shekel. But we'd have to do that half a shekel wholesomely. Now let's look at the concept of a coin of fire. In source 6, Rabbi Meir said, this is the next page, God drew a coin of fire from beneath the throne of glory and showed it to Moses. He told him, give this, zeh yitnu, meaning give a coin like this one. Because the Torah tells us that God told Moses, zeh yitnu, this they shall give. Which implies you don't say this unless you're in front of something, right? You say that, right? But if you're saying this, it means you're pointing at something visually. So the question is, did Moses not know what money was? Did he not know what a shekel was or what a half shekel was? What was so hard for him to understand the mitzvah? You know, it says about certain other things like the menorah. It was complicated. It had cups and flowers and this and designs and all sorts of things. And Moses like, I get it. I'm hearing the instructions, but I just can't picture it. And God's like, I got you. I'll do it this time. Now you'll see what it looks like, and now you'll know how to make it for the future. Another case was before the Jews left Egypt, and God said, I want you to sanctify the new moon when you see the new crescent. And God's like, hey, look at that. That's what it should look like. And when you see that thing that I'm showing you right now, that's when you know it's a new Jewish month. So there's a few times where God told Moses in the visual, like, look there, that's how it is. So the question is, why did he have to point to a coin and say like this? So also, if you know the story with Moses in the palace as a baby, where he had the coins in front of him and he had the coals in front of him, you familiar with that episode? I'll just say it quickly. When Moses was a baby, he grew up in Pharaoh's palace, and at some point he tried to take Pharaoh's crown, and the guards are like, "Wait, this kid is up to no good. You know, he might be, he might not turn out too well one day." So somebody else said, "Well, it's just the crown is shiny. He maybe just likes shiny stuff." So the king said, "You know what? Let's make a test. We'll bring out two shiny stuff, and we'll see, is he after the color or is he after the money?" So hot coals are also very shiny, as is a plate of gold coins. So they presented them to Moses, and Moses was about to reach for the gold coins because he knew what was truly valuable. But an angel came and pushed his hand into the coals, and then he went and he burnt his tongue, and that's why he had a speaking disorder. Yeah.
He needed Aaron.
Exactly. So we see that Moses had no issue understanding the value of money already from a small age. I don't know if he knew about the Spanish coins and the American coins, but he knew about the shekels. So why did God have to show Moses the coin? So look at source 7.
Moses wondered, how could man redeem his soul? God showed him and told him to show the Jewish people.
In other words, he's like, I understand what a coin is, but I also understand what a soul is. And a soul and a coin are in completely different worlds. How does this physical coin fix the spiritual soul, right? It's like imagine you go to the mechanic and he's like, why don't you just stick this Torah book in your engine? That should help it work better. Right? You look at him and be like, hello, you got the wrong genre over here, right? So how are you sticking same way you can't stick a spiritual thing into the engine of a car? How do you stick a coin into a spiritual engine, so to speak, into a soul, right? It doesn't seem like they match, understand you pour gasoline or oil into an engine, not a book. Like, how do those two connect? How do coins and souls go together? So keep reading. Let's see what the Rebbe says.
How was Moses' question, what can a person give as atonement for his soul, resolved by God showing him a coin of fire? The explanation is as follows. By showing Moses a coin of fire, God demonstrated that the half shekel given by the Jewish people is itself a coin of fire, given with excitement and burning passion, a fire that comes from the very core of the soul. This is why it serves as an atonement for the person's soul, because a person is giving the very core of their soul.
Oh, so that's why giving a coin of fire addresses this very question. It's not it's not that the coins achieve atonement. It's the coin that's given with fire. That's what gives the atonement. So it's not the coin that atones, it's the fire that does it. When the coin is burning with a longing of a fire of longing to God, of love for God, when behind the physical coin that's given is a Jewish soul that's yearning to connect with his Father in heaven, then that physical act expresses the deep spiritual connection and relationship that the Jew has with God.
Going back to Kabbalah, though,
Yeah.
what if that coin is not given in that manner? Like, I have to give this and I really don't want to, and I know I have to.
So this is where the old saying of don't let the perfect be the enemy of good, right? Of course, there's the technical side of the mitzvah. You still need to give the coin, whether you like it or not, whether it hurts or you love it. You got to do it anyway.
And
But-
it's not the thought, it's the action.
Right.
You can think a bad thought, but you don't do it. It's okay, but when you act on it, that's when it's not okay. And the same thing with the giving of the, if you
You think with the negative thought, right?
you're still
Yeah.
giving it, even though you don't want to, but you're doing it.
But it means more if it's burning.
Well, you could say that, but in the end, it's the same.
Well, no, it's not the same. Yes, action is paramount. That is what we're trying to say. That Judaism always emphasizes action. And it says
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you feel up to it or you don't feel up to
You
it.
gotta do
The
it.
main thing is that you have to do it.
And
right?
things you can't do, you want.
But here God is saying that it does matter what you feel, because God wants the heart as well. And dry giving is not the same as giving with fire, giving with passion. And when God says you want to know how to do this mitzvah the right way, you have to do it with passion.
You don't disagree.
Okay.
The Torah doesn't say that.
Right here in the Zeh Yitnu, when it says give like this. The Torah is expansive. It's not just the text of the verse.
It seems that, of course, I agree that it's good what you're saying, but does it actually say that in the Torah?
Let me tell you a rule with Torah. No. What one of the rules with understanding Torah is that it's not only the literal word that we have to study.
Yeah.
We have to understand the choice of words and why certain words were used over others. So just to reiterate, the question we had earlier was, why does it say give this and not give that currency? Because God was showing Moses this coin. Why? And then we said, but why does Moses need to know what coins look like? We know he knows what coins look like. So we answered that he know that God was telling him more than just a technical thing, but he was saying something deeper, that this coin should be a coin of fire that is given with passion.
If you want to take it literal, somebody has to make that coin in order for you to give it to. So you need help no matter what.
Right.
Because we don't make the coins.
That's true. That's true. The
So
mint
no
does it
matter
for.
Oh,
Yeah.
You can't just do it by yourself.
somebody's gotta press it and bang it.
No, absolutely. That's another element of it. That we also need each other. We need our fellow humans to
The fire.
help us. We can't all do everything, right? We didn't make the shirt we're wearing. We didn't make the chair we're sitting on and the food we're eating and the paper we're reading from. We can't all do that. Some people do make chairs. Some people print papers. Some people, right? That's part of living in a society. Now, so that's what the quote earlier from the Yerushalmi, that Thor 6 was saying, that this is where we get this idea of the passionate fire, the passionate coin, the coin of fire, symbolizing doing that mitzvah with passion. As the saying goes, a mitzvah without kavana is like a body without a neshama. A body can be the same body, but there's a very big difference if that body is alive or if it's just a body, right? So,
What about how you attain that shekel too? I mean,
well, it has to be done honestly. You can't steal it.
right, so I'm saying is that the effort that it took to bring about to get that shekel.
Ah, there you go.
Part of
So
the
that's
fire.
also the effort. Absolutely. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons why tzedakah is such a profound mitzvah, and it's called the all-encompassing mitzvah, is because while the act of giving is done only with your hand, everything that led to you being able to give involved your entire body, blood, sweat, and tears, right? So that's why tzedakah is such a redemptive mitzvah, that it really affects every fiber of your being, because you're only able to get there by putting your whole self into it. So in another talk, the Rebbe cites a parable that was told in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, where a young student went to learn how to be a goldsmith. Maybe his name was Goldsmith. Yeah, Sam Goldsmith. He wanted to learn how to shape silver and gold. So he went to an experienced craftsman, and the craftsman showed him how to bring the metal close to the fire, how to melt it, how to shape it as needed. Maybe he wanted to make the coin himself. Unlike most of us that we get it from the mint. He wanted to learn how to mint coins, right? So he learned how to control the metal, and he felt he was ready to open up his own coin molding business. And they stood over the coals with the coins, and they're waiting for it to take shape, but nothing happened. They ran back to his teacher. He said, something's not working. We need some help, tech support. So the teacher goes through the motions. He says, well, did you place the gold? Yes. Did you wait for it to soften? Yes. So he said, did you light the fire? Like, oh, you didn't tell me I have to light the fire. So that's how it works. Let's see source 8, Larry.
Okay, this can be understood through a parable. Some say it sources the Baal Shem Tov. Someone learned the craft of silver and goldsmithing, and the one who taught the craft showed them how to perform every detail. However, they did not mention the need to place fire beneath the silver and gold because it was so obvious. When the student later performed all the steps of the craft, they skipped this detail and did not light a fire underneath. Understandably, nothing resulted from all their work, and the gold and silver remained raw as before. This was God's answer to Moses by showing him a coin of fire. Giving the coin by itself does not reach the essence of the soul to atone for it. Only when the fire is added, and the coin is given with warmth that comes from the essence of the soul, from the lamp of God, the human soul, can the half shekel serve as redemption for the soul.
Okay, so that is the answer to Moshe's question. How do you stick a book in a car engine, or how do you stick a coin in a soul? The answer is when it's given with fire. Steve, the Rebbe.
Based on this, we can explain the rule regarding the giving of the half shekel was that the rich shall not give more and the poor shall not give less. At first glance, this is difficult to understand. We are talking about spiritual wealth and poverty relevant to the donation of the half shekel. Regarding wealth or poverty, in other areas, there would be no need to say the rich shall not give more and the poor shall not give less than the half shekel. Why then should a person who is rich not give more and one who is poor not give less? The explanation is that the distinction between.
In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is that we're not talking about some metaphor of wealth and poverty, like that somebody who is wise is called wealthy, or somebody who studies Torah or does mitzvahs is considered wealthy, and somebody who doesn't do a lot of mitzvahs is considered poor. We're not speaking in metaphors. We're talking about actual monetary wealth and poverty, and yet we're saying that despite their monetary wealth and poverty, in a monetary mitzvah, everybody should still be equal.
Yeah, there's no distinction between any,
Yeah.
what he's doing.
Mhm.
Okay, I think it's like the next sentence
Okay.
explains that. The explanation is the distinction between the rich and the poor only applies to the revealed powers of the soul. But with respect to the core of the soul, its absolute essence, the rich and poor are equal. The poor person has no less, the rich person has no more. This is similar to physical realm, where the difference between a strong person and a weak person lies in the revealed abilities. But in the basic life force, they are equal. The weak person is alive, the strong person is no more than alive.
So let me put it in simple terms. A person with an amputated leg, or say even a person with a um, genetic disease that takes away their vision, is able to reproduce a child that has legs and has full eyesight. It happens all the time. People have various deficiencies. I mean, like you all know people who are less than perfect, and their children, they're angels, right? How's that possible, right? How can you give what you don't have? And the answer is very simple, or I should say, it's very profound. That is that what we see is the manifestation of the soul's powers coming into the vessels of a particular bodily part. So the soul has the power of vision, but it requires physical eyes to see. The soul has the power of walking, but it requires physical legs to walk, right? But whether or not that soul had the opportunity to express itself physically and outwardly does not impact, and certainly it doesn't diminish that soul's power to recreate and procreate a child that does have the ability to walk and to see or any other bodily function, right? Why? Because but there is one thing that's necessary. The person recreating has to be alive. You have to be alive to procreate in most cases. In most cases, but even then, very close to life. Yeah, but we're not getting into science labs over here. We're talking about everyday life. Okay, so
Nothing about cloning.
no, but you get the idea that just because somebody outwardly does not possess a certain quality, it doesn't mean that their soul doesn't have that quality inside,
Right.
right? And so therefore, when it comes to poverty and wealth, there are some people who outwardly have more wealth than others, but it doesn't mean that on a soul level, on a core level, that any one of them is more or less alive than the other.
All souls are created equal.
Exactly. Since
Since the half shekel serves as atonement for the soul and is connected to the core of the soul, it is therefore given in a way so that the rich shall not give more and the poor shall not give less.
right. So when you're talking about other forms of charity, yes, the body matters, and like you said, it what's actually needed in terms of the physical necessities, that's what's paramount. So if somebody needs $100 and you give them $2, you didn't do the job, right? Um, but over here, we're talking about that it's about the soul's atonement. This is entirely a spiritual exercise, yes, with some physical ramifications, but that's why everybody is equal in this mitzvah. And now we get to the Moses of every generation here in page 11. Vicky.
There is a perplexing midrash regarding the reading of the Shekelim. In
Keep
the
going.
reading of the Shekelim, Moses said before God, Master of the universe, after I pass away, I won't be remembered. God responded, by your life, just as you stand now and teach them the reading of Shekelim and raise them up, so too, every year when they read it before me, it will be as if you are standing there and raising them up. What is the source? The verse says, when you raise. It does not say raise, but when you raise.
Let me just explain some of the Hebrew linguistics over here that are relevant. The one of the reasons why the half shekel was given was to pay for the sacrifices in the tabernacle. But what's one of the other reasons? What what did they use these half shekels for? What was the function of it? Anybody? What was another purpose of these half shekels?
To atone, sort
To
of,
atone,
of course, but
to
also
pay for
the building of the
sacrifices.
sacrifice.
What else?
Maintain the temple.
That was another half shekel to pay for like the raw materials of the temple, yeah. But what was another function of even having this count happening,
Well, it goes on the Mishkan also, the silver.
right? The silver, the rest of the materials, the sacrifices.
But
But-
why were they counting? Is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
yeah. So I'm not asking the question well, so I'll just say what I'm getting at is that it was there exactly to create a census of the Jewish people, right? So God is telling Moses, when you count the Jewish people, you should do it by taking a half a shekel from each head of household, right?
Yeah, it's in
So-
the Torah.
Now, so the word for counting is not kisif code when you count, or kisimneh when you count, like the word minyan, timneh, but the word is actually kitisa, when you uplift. That's what he's saying over here. When you raise up. So it doesn't say raise up the Jewish people, but it actually says you raise the Jewish people. So there's something about Moses's involvement in helping us be uplifted with the giving of the half shekel. Let's see what the Rebbe says over here. The Medrash is saying that since the verse doesn't state raise the head in the language of a command, but rather you shall raise the head, not sa es rosh, but tisa es rosh in the future tense. So sa es rosh would mean like do it right now. Tisa means you will at some point down the line raise their head in the future tense. This also alludes to the raising up that will take place in the future every single year through Moses, and the extension of Moses that exists in every generation. This is a concept that the Zohar says that there's called the Ispashtusa de Moshe, the Chaldara Vadara. There's the offshoot or the spreading out of Moses that exists in every generation, which has a universal Jewish leader of their time. Like, for example, Mordechai in the times of the Purim story was the Moshe of that generation. He doesn't have to have the name Moshe to serve that function. At first glance, this is puzzling. Why is it specifically in the Torah portion dealing with the half shekel that Moses asked God what would be in the future generations after I pass away? He didn't ask such a question in any of the earlier portions, right? Moses doesn't ask, what's going to be with Shabbat after I pass away? What's going to be with Passover? What's going to be with the tzitzis? He's not concerned that the Jews are going to, fizzle out after he passes away, but only about the mitzvah of the half shekel. He's worried, what's going to be after 120, quite literally in his case. What's going to be after 120? How will the Jews fulfill this mitzvah? So why is he asking specifically about this mitzvah? What's different about it? So the Rebbe says, based on what we learned above, we can also understand the special connection between the section of the half shekel and Moses. In order for the giving of the half shekel to come from the core of the soul, we need the action of Moses, about whom it said, when you raise the head of the children of Israel. Only Moses has the ability to awaken the deepest core of the soul, to raise the head of the Jewish people. There's a story that's told of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, who gave a half a ruble to his grandson, to the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe. And at the time, the Rebbe Rashab was about 4 years old. And he told him about this half ruble. He's like, here's a half a shekel. And he said, pay attention to the word machatzit, half. the letter tzaddik hints to the tzaddik, and the tzaddik is in the tzaddik means a righteous person, but it's also the letter tzaddik is right in the middle of the word. So closest to the letter tzaddik is in Hebrew it's mem ches tzaddik yud saf. So next to the tzaddik is the ches and yud. Ches and yud is chai, life. But the letters that are away from the tzaddik, away from the righteous man, is mem saf, which spells mace, death. So that the teaching, what he's saying is you have to pay attention to the tzaddik in the half, in the machatzis. That if you're close to a tzaddik, then you get life, you get strength, physical life, spiritual strength through the channel of the tzaddik. But if somebody distances themselves from the tzaddik, especially if somebody fights the tzaddik, like Korach, Moses' cousin, who was raising a rebellion against Moses, then they're doing mace. They're going further from the tzaddik, and so they have the mem and saf, which spells death. So the remedy to the lack of life is get closer to the tzaddik, get closer to the Moses of the generation.
That's where we get the expression pound sand.
Pound sand?
Oh, he pounded.
Oh,
sand.
fine. Well, I don't know why he went in the sand.
Yeah, right, he was
Yeah.
pounding sand.
Okay, got it. So this explains why, specifically in the section of the half shekel, Moses asked God what would be in the future generations after he passes away. Since the giving of atonement for his soul, which comes from the core of the soul, requires Moses' action, the tzaddik's action. He was concerned about what would happen after his passing. To this, God answered him, it does not say raise the head in the imperative form, but rather when you shall raise in the future tense. This means that just as you stand now and give them the section of the half shekel and lift up their heads, so too every single year, when they read it before me, it is as though you are standing there at that moment and lifting up their heads. When the Jewish people read the section of the half shekel each year with renewed excitement, each day they should be in your eyes as new. Then the concept of raising the head takes place through the extension of Moses in that generation, awakens the deepest core of the soul, which again goes back to the story of Purim, where Mordechai, who was the head of the generation, the Moses of the generation, gathered the Jews together and inspired them to do tshuva. He helped them realize that the whole reason for the gezerah, for the decree of Haman in the first place, was only because the Jews participated in Achashverosh's party, and they were trying to find favor in the king's eyes instead of finding favor in the ultimate king's eyes, and that's where they went wrong. And so he helped them and guided them back onto the path of Torah and of mitzvahs. And the same is true for the Moses of our generation, the Rebbe who sent emissaries all over the world and made it his life's mission to like Mordechai, to bring Jews back into the fold, to lift them up, not by criticizing them, not by telling them how terrible they are, but by revealing the core of the soul that's inside of every one of us, and realizing that we can do better, that we are better, that we come we're cut from the finest cloth, as they say, and that is the job of the Moses, to uplift every Jew, just like the word kitisa in this week's Torah portion, to uplift. And that's how we make sure that not only will they be uplifted, but they'll be counted or accounted for. So that is some of the lessons from the half shekel that we